As part of looking at creating back scenes, I'm here with Tim Watson, President of the Model Railway Club, and that's what he's saying, sort of the driving force behind Copenhagen Fields, which is the most monumental scenic project, not just as a railway project, as well in 2 mil fine scale. But it's to talk about the back scene and the force perspective that you've actually brought into it. So it's a huge scene.
Yes.
What length is it?
Well, the layout is 22 feet long and it's about 6 to 7 feet deep at its deepest. So it's got a lot of scope for scale change in that depth.
Yeah.
So at the front of the layout, we modelled to 2mm scale. At the back of the layout, it goes down to 1/450. And in fact, we even have a T-gauge train that sometimes works in the background.
Right. So how did you actually calculate the diminishing dimensions as you recede towards the back?
Calculate? The way it works is that the scenery has various breaks in it. So your eye knows what size a house should be, but factories have different sizes.
Right.
So when we want to change the scale and reduce the scale, we use a factory block to hide that drop. So behind each factory you'll find probably that there's a change of scale.
Okay.
And so by the time you get to the back, we're down to a pretty small in fact.
Okay. And once you've got to the back, there's very little detail actually on the buildings at that
Less
point.
is more in 2mm scale, and I think many back scenes need to be very understated, not overstated. So we tend to actually deliberately underplay it. We use a very limited colour palette in the buildings and scenery that are on the layout, especially towards the back of the layout. And indeed, the detail cannot be there, because if it's there, it will take your eye to the back, and what you want your eye to see is the detail at the front of the layout.
Okay. And that applies to the colouring that's used on the buildings as well. It's quite muted, isn't it?
It is. It's probably not as dirty as it should be for London, but it's what we think is right. And again, I think in terms of colours, you need to be much lighter than people realise. People think it's a brown building, I'll use brown paint. It's not, it's going to be a buff colour. It needs to be lighter, and that applies very much to the smaller scales. So as you go further back into the layout, you do need to lighten stuff up a bit as well.
Okay. And the topography of the land, where you've got that very low horizon as well, is also quite subtle too.
The ground basically rises over that way, and on the layout, in fact, we use the natural North London heights as the kill point, as it were, for the scene. The actual topography is designed so that you don't get any straight views to show a diminishing scale.
Right.
So that where you have a problem of a tapered view, you only go so far, and then you put a junction in and you take it through 90 degrees. So you don't get the long views, which could be a problem to model.
Right. Now, the actual boards on which the back scene is painted, they're quite substantial sized boards, aren't they?
Well, they're big sheets of plywood. They are very awkward to handle, and they're just painted direct onto the 4mm ply and stitched together. The big problem is the joints, and those need maintenance every now and then. In fact, they're due for a bit of maintenance. But hey, you can't do it any other way. We could consider a canvas back scene, but the logistics of fixing that would be very, very difficult.
Yeah. But also as well, looking at the tones in the sky and the clouds, again, they're quite subtle, and it's a substantial piece of artwork, actually, that back scene, isn't it?
Yes, it's all done with emulsion paint, various colours. The critical thing is to make sure that you start with the high end of the back scene is dark blue, and then as you go towards the horizon it gets lighter and lighter, and you need to scale the clouds so that they stack up more and more closely together as you get towards the horizon. You're looking at a parabola in shape, so to get that eye drawn into it, dark at the top, lighter at the bottom. If you get that right, the rest follows. It doesn't even have to have clouds.
Okay. But you've got a mixture of clouds in there, and also quite a bit of stormy weather looking towards the north.
Yeah, well, we do. We have a standard Watson cloud. So, you know, that's the clouds always go that way on my layouts.
Okay, right.
It's all emulsion paint.
Yeah. Okay, thanks very much indeed. Thanks for that overview, and thanks for the tips that you've passed on, Tim.
My pleasure.
Lovely. Thank you very much.